Hey, good afternoon to you. Mark Stott of HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion. It's Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, and we got a few things to talk about. We're going to look at the Eastern Pacific, check out the CFS, the upward motion, the MJO, I guess, is one way to look at that. When the Atlantic might start to really come to life, and of course out there right now we do have invest area 95L, and briefly tonight, if you're into meteor showers, the annual Perseid meteor shower, when the Earth goes through a debris field left over from a comet. In this case, I believe it's Comet Swift-Tuttle, dual names there. You get meteors, and it's in the constellation Perseus, where the radiant comes from, and it rises in the east, northeast roughly. After about 11 p.m., you can start to see it more prevalently until probably 3 a.m., 4 a.m. So if you're into that kind of thing, tonight's your night. I'm going to go out and check it out myself and see what we get, right? So that'll be interesting, especially since it's the height of summer and there's lots of bugs. So first, though, before I do that, let's do this. Take a look at the climate forecast system here in the tropics. This is the upward motion, okay? That's the 200 millibar level. The red is sinking air, and the green is generally rising air. And this gradient here, the darker green, for example, would indicate quite a bit of rising motion, and that's centered over the Eastern Pacific. The West Pacific, lots of sinking motion. Down here in the South Pacific, also lots of sinking air. And lo and behold, if we look at what's going on in the East Pacific, there you go. We have our Hurricane Elita, a high area of development chances. This one's not even on the 48-hour map yet. This is like 5 days out. This other system, there's an outbreak, as we call it. Somebody mentioned that recently, an outbreak of hurricanes. Yes, we're getting that in the Eastern Pacific, and it's very coincidental to this large area of upward motion that we see starting to come together. And this is from the climate forecast system, the CFS. This is the next several days ending on August the 18th. So let's go out another week. All right, so this takes us out a full 336 hours. The green really, especially the dark green, really starts to expand now more into the Caribbean and into the tropical Atlantic. Some of these gradient colors, it's just expanding more and more. More sinking over here in the West Pac. This takes us out to about the August 25th time frame. So that really, come on, that's when the peak of the season really starts to ramp up. One more, whoops, I activated the volume. One more look out into the future, 504 hours out. The upward motion covers most of the Atlantic basin now. Very, very prevalent over Africa. Strong sinking over the Pacific. And this is as far out as I'm going to go. This thing goes out for like 45 days or something like that. But this takes us into the early part of September here. Valid the 25th of August to the 1st of September. Prime time for the Atlantic. Rising motion in the green, sinking motion in the red. There you go. And as I said, this really helps to illustrate it in real time. These are the forecasts, if you will, going forward. You see how that goes. And this is where we are now. And it's the Pacific, the Eastern Pacific's where we're seeing most of the action. For you folks along the Mexican coast, Elita here probably going to send some more swells out. This is a Category 2 hurricane, so that's not surprising. These other systems might impact mainland Mexico over the next few days with some showers and thunderstorms around the bands. We'll watch this closely as things start to develop. I'll show you this more detail on the satellite picture in just a moment. Moving over to the Atlantic, our invest area 95L. All right, 90% chance of development out here. I still think this is going to become a name storm somewhere in this region. Not going to surprise me if it does that, and I'll show you why in just a moment. First, let's take a look at the satellite animation here. The Hurricane Elita in the Eastern Pacific. Our other disturbances trying to gather energy all over here. This is where the upward motion is, and again, that matches up very, very well to what the climate forecast system is showing for the time being, and for the next several days. This matches up nicely. Again, these systems down here closer to Mexico as they try to get going. You may get some heavier rains, but no direct impacts from a landfall indicated in the modeling just yet. The guidance is not suggesting that quite yet. We do need to watch this little area of energy out over the Gulf Stream, sitting off the southeast coast. Could be one of these sneaky systems that develops on its way out. It wouldn't be of any consequence to land, but could end up being another one of those named storms that makes the season very, very busy from a named storm perspective, but doesn't add much in the way of accumulated cyclone energy, or what we call ACE. So this is kind of like bringing in a bench warmer, you know. So you got your 5 starting players of a basketball team, and they've all done really well, many of them scoring 15, 20, 45 points, whatever. And the team as a whole scored 136 points that night, just blew out the competition. So then you bring in the bench warmers. And so they played 11 players, but only 5 of them really scored. The other 6 were just kind of coming in to let the starters, the basketball stars, get a break. I think that's a heck of an analogy, if I do say so myself. This would be one of those bench warmers, adding to the pile and the stats, but not scoring a lot of what we call accumulated cyclone energy, because it probably wouldn't become a powerful storm. Here's 95L. It too probably not going to become a powerful storm or hurricane, but I do think it does develop, and it'll start to gain some latitude here and move north of the islands over time, because this big area of high pressure that we have sitting out over the Atlantic currently, that's going to erode, especially the western side over here, mainly because of this. Yep, this is going to punch a hole in the western Atlantic ridge and allow this to gain some latitude with time, and then the shear will probably increase over here, and this will eventually, I think, fade away. I'm not 100% convinced, and you know what? If it doesn't, if it comes up and then this lifts out over here and then the ridge builds back in, this could turn back towards the west, and we'll just have to wait and see. Sometimes that can be a problem. Just something to keep an eye on. Those of us that have done this long enough, you know. You don't ever say, oh, it's never going to be a problem, ever. That can come back to haunt you. The vorticity signature, pretty revealing here. There's our hurricane in the Pacific. Round, lots of energy bundled up there, very round in its appearance. This too is very round. This is Invest 95L, but this one's a hurricane. This one's just an area of interest, and it has a lot of work to do in order to become like its Eastern Pacific counterpart. This is the area coming off the southeast coast that we have to watch. Again, probably not going to impact land as it develops, but it's going to move out over the Atlantic and then head off in this direction. And that'll do some interesting things. Like I said, I think it'll help to erode the western part of the ridge over here and allow this disturbance to gain that latitude that I talked about. And we can see that as we look at the Euro in just a moment. First, the satellite animation here. Some strong shear coming in, well, fairly strong from the east, kind of moving faster than the clouds can expand. So it blows those thunderstorms away from the low-level center. We call that shear. This is dry air, relatively speaking, drier. And you can tell because of that fish scale look, the Stratocumulus Clouds. And look at the interesting radiating, not radiation, but the radiating of these waves of energy that come out from our system. I really don't know how to explain what that is. And I'm not saying that it's some crazy mystery. I don't know what it's called. Okay, I don't know everything. But I do know that that's really cool to see that energy. It's like somebody dropped a rock in the water and the ripples are heading out. I'm sure there's a name for it in meteorology and in atmospheric physics. I just don't know what it is. So if you do, kindly comment in the YouTube comments and on our Patreon. Wow, that's kind of neat. But anyway, easily distracted am I. When you see something cool like that, you got to take note. But really, these fish scales up here, called Stratocumulus Clouds, they're layered. That's the stratus part. And the cumulus, it's a field of fair weather clouds, no convection in there, indicative of a stable atmosphere. But the thunderstorms are down here, kind of, like I said, getting pushed from the east by the trades, and the mid-level wind's a little too strong. But as this moves on over towards the west-northwest with time, it should gain some more robustness, as they say. And we can see that in the euro. This is the latest euro from 12Z today. West coast of Africa here. Cape Verde Islands, or Cabo Verde Islands there. Puerto Rico right here. And the Lesser Antilles. There's Barbados, right? And here's our disturbance, 95L. 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity. 5,000 feet up in the layers of the atmosphere. That's what we're looking at. Strong area of high pressure now, but watch over here that it'll get eroded with time, and that's the reason this system won't just stay in the trades and go on into the Caribbean straight west, because this is going to erode away. It's really neat how you can see that. So 24 hours out, it moves to the west a little bit more, and a little bit more oomph to it, as we say. 24 more hours, this is valid on Thursday morning. Probably at this point in time, a name storm. Probably. I would say good odds, okay? And then by 72 hours, definitely a name storm, in my opinion. Warmer water temperatures. It's moistening the atmosphere. The MJO is coming. Everything's just leaning towards it being more favorable. And look, that's August the 14th. If this does, in fact, get a name and it becomes Josephine, it'll be 10 named storms that we've seen before August 15th. And that is a huge, huge indicator that we've already had kind of a regular hurricane season's worth of named storms. It used to be that 10 named storms was the average, but in the last 20 years or so, it's gone up to about 12 named storms. Part of that's because of satellite imagery being able to detect these the bench warmers that I talked about. But anyway, if this becomes a named storm before August 15th, that's very telling. And the fact that it came from and is down here in the deep tropics, that's just a huge sign of what's coming. All right, so another 24 hours now out at 96. This is Saturday morning. Still fairly robust there. Named storm just northeast of the islands. It would send out some swells. Nothing major, but a few increase in the swells there for the islands. So keep an eye on that if you live down there or planning on visiting. However, that's happening now with the pandemic, the wretched virus. Can you even vacation? I have no idea. It's just, I'm over it. We all are. Anyhow, at 120 hours, it probably starts to fizzle, and the reason why, there's that energy that tries to develop. Got a little bit of a front with it, so we'll see. But it does erode the ridge some, and we'll see if this gets left over and slows down and doesn't completely dissipate and shear out. It might come north more and then turn back to the west. Just something to watch down the road. Again, this is out 5 days. That's good enough for me. Anything beyond 5 days, just whatever. Really no point in looking at it, honestly. You know, maybe something out in the eastern Atlantic. Eventually we will look at like days 6 and 7, try to figure out some keys to the game. I talk about this, but I try to be conservative. No reason to look out beyond 5 days with something like this, because it really might not be anything at all to look at. So why waste our time? All right. So that's about it. I'm done for now. Again, the Perseid meteor shower tonight. I'm going to go out and check it out up in Pender County. I'm going to take my children, a few of them, and we're going to hang out on the back of the pickup truck that I have for the next several months. I got a sweet rental deal, and I'm going to take advantage of that and lay in the bed liner and avoid the bugs and the snakes and the coyotes, I guess. And yes, there are coyotes out there. And if you get a chance, check it out too. If you can brave the elements, the humidity and the mosquitoes and the howling coyotes where you live, and maybe you'll see some meteors too. 11 to 3 a.m. tonight. Tomorrow night as well, but I think tonight's the main part of the peak. Hopefully the skies will be clear. Anyway, don't forget I'm on Twitter at HurricaneTrack. YouTube is HurricaneTrack as well. Hurricane TRACK, you know it. And we are supported by the magnificent people, men and women, and a few aliens on Patreon. Hey, apparently they live amongst us, right? That's what we're told. Seriously, though, that's how the engine is driven here. The funding, not only the funding, but the support, people purchasing equipment for our project, the emotional support, the physical support, literally coming out to help us out. It's amazing. And if you want to become part of that, you can. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. You guys have a good rest of your Tuesday. Thanks for spending this time with me. I do appreciate it. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.